Hi, my name is Brad Bearden. I'm an implementation specialist with Acctivate, and today I'll be discussing the Sales Order Manager, which is a new feature included in Acctivate 10.2. So what is the Order Manager? At the highest level, the Order Manager introduces new functionality in primarily two areas: processing orders and querying order information. The Order Manager is a new window, which we'll look at shortly, which can be used to filter and sort orders and perform actions based on the orders selected. The Order Manager has predefined bars and buttons which allow the user to quickly return a list of orders based on a predefined criteria. For example, when I have the Sales Order Manager open, I see buttons that represent each of the workflow status. Clicking on the Pick in Progress button will return all the orders that have the workflow status of Pick in Progress. I can also further filter down orders on the fly. After clicking on the Ready to Pick button, I may choose to filter down to see orders that have a requested ship date of today or tomorrow. This functionality allows me to quickly see the orders that I need to see. Finally, once I've identified which orders I want to work with, I can perform actions on them in batch, such as emailing, printing pick tickets, invoicing, and more. By default, the Order Manager window is made up of three default bars. A bar is comprised of buttons and is displayed at the top of the Order Manager, which is made up of buttons. The three default bars are sales orders, service orders, and workflow statuses. When you select a bar, a set of buttons will appear. Clicking on a button will return a certain set of orders based on how the button is configured. For example, when I'm in the default sales order bar, I will see buttons labeled backordered, scheduled, on credit hold, and change today, just to name a few. If I click on the change today button, it will return all orders that were edited today. If I click on the credit hold button, I see a list of orders on credit hold. These default bars and buttons cannot be edited. However, you can create your own bars and buttons from scratch or copy an existing bar and modify it to meet your needs. Creating a bar is a great way to see order information relevant to you on an ongoing basis. For example, you might create a bar called Salespersons or a bar called Web Store Orders. Once you've created your bars, you can add buttons to the bar. When creating a button, you assign it order selection criteria. For example, if I create a salesperson bar, I would want to create a button for each salesperson. I could set up a button with the description of Floyd Harris, which is one of my salespersons. I will configure this button to display all of Floyd's sales orders. When setting up a button, I can have the button display a value relating to the orders that meet the criteria of the button. This amount could be the ordered amount, scheduled amount, backordered amount, or authorized amount for users who authorize credit cards before capturing funds. If I choose the option of ordered amount, then the button will display the total order amount of all the orders that correspond to that button. Now that I've named my button, I can configure how I want the button to display. I would specify which orders should be displayed when clicking on this button. Here you can combine various filters until you see the specific set of orders you want. For example, for my Floyd Harris button, I would want to see all the sales orders with the status of scheduled or backordered, where the salesperson's name is Floyd Harris. These filters can be then configured to your liking, allowing you to see orders that meet a set of criteria. To use the Sales Order Manager, you would first select one of the default or custom bars to view. Next, you'll click a button to return a set of orders. If necessary, you can further filter down orders. You would then select the orders on the screen that you want to work with. You can select individual orders or select all orders, or you can select a set of orders. Finally, you would choose your action from the action menu. Let's look at some of the actions. The actions menu in the Sales Order Manager allows you to perform actions on selected orders. Actions include scheduling, printing forms, emailing, changing the workflow status, and more. One new option is the Unscheduled button. Users that have been using the Order Management tab of the Sales Order Manager are familiar with the Schedule button. The Unscheduled button allows you to remove inventory from another order and make it available to be allocated to new orders. This can be beneficial if you have orders that need to ship today, but all of your inventory is allocated to orders that are scheduled to ship in a couple of months, for example. The ability to batch email using an email template can be accomplished in the Sales Order Manager as well. If there's a contact email on the order, then Acctivate will create an email to send to the customer with a form attached as a PDF or whatever form you are trying to email. You can choose from your list of email templates to fill in the body of the email. Another new feature is the ability to batch update the workflow status for orders. You can now select a set of orders and move them to a new workflow status. This makes it easier to identify where in the process the sales order is and quickly move the order on to the next stage. Now let's take a look at the Sales Order Manager. Order Manager can be accessed from the Sales menu or using the icon on the toolbar. Under the Sales menu, you'll find it here. The icon on the toolbar will be next to the Sales Order button, so I'll click the Order Manager icon. As I mentioned earlier, there are 3 predefined bars. When I click on View, I can see the 3 predefined bars at the bottom. They are Sales Order, Service Order, and Workflow Statuses. If I select the Workflow Status view, I will see buttons that represent each workflow status. Depending on the view, you will see different buttons. Here in the Workflow Status view, you can see the default buttons. Clicking on a button will return orders that meet the criteria of the button. For example, if I click on Pick in Progress, I'm going to see orders with the workflow status of Pick in Progress. We can take a closer look at configuration of the views and buttons to get a better understanding of how these work. To do that, we'll click on Configure. The first 3 bars you see on the left are the defaults. You'll notice these are grayed out. It's because you can't edit these or the buttons in these bars. If I expand one of these, such as the workflow status, you will see the buttons that comprise that view. If I click on a button, I can see how that button is configured. This button will include orders that have one of these order statuses and a workflow status of Pick in Progress. For example, this will include booked, scheduled, or backordered orders. Workflow status is Pick in Progress. The type is ordered as opposed to quote. In the upper right hand corner, we'll see an amount field that displays on the button. The amount displayed on the button is the amount ordered. I can't edit these, however, I can make a copy of the bar, which will copy all the underlying buttons, or I can copy a single button to another bar. To do that, I can click on the bar and click the copy button at the bottom. Alternatively, I can click on the button name and choose copy. So if I want to copy the Pick in Progress button, I'll click copy and I select which bar I want to copy it to. As you can see, I've created 2 of my own views, Salesperson and Web Orders. If we look at the buttons in the Salesperson bar, you can see the criteria I've specified. For the button Floyd Harris, I want to see sales orders that are open with the salesperson Floyd Harris. At the bottom I see a preview which indicates there are 3 orders that meet the criteria. In the upper right hand corner I see that the amount field reads scheduled. That corresponds to the value on the button. In this case, the Floyd Harris button will return 3 orders with a scheduled amount of 10.3 thousand. I want to make some modifications to this button. First, I want the amount on the button to reflect the ordered amount instead of the scheduled amount. So I'll change the amount field at the top. As I mentioned earlier, the other options are ordered, backordered, and authorized. Authorized meaning the authorized credit card amount. I'm going to change this to ordered. Now I want to change my selection criteria to include quotes, not just orders. To do that, I'm going to click the operator next to the field. So instead of is, I'm going to do is any of, since I'm going to have multiple types. When I make that selection, I have a green plus sign here, which allows me to add another value. When I click in this field, I'm going to choose quote. As you can see in the preview, this now includes 4 orders at the same value in this case. I like this button and I want to replicate it for all my salesperson, so I'm going to copy this. So to do that, I'll click the copy button and I need to give it a new name. So I'll call this Judy Jones and I want to copy it into the salesperson bar. For the Judy Jones button, I want to change the salesperson to not be Floyd Harris. Instead, I'm going to select Judy D. Jones. Okay, so let's take a look at the new button we created. We'll close the configuration window here and look at the sales order manager itself. To bring up that view, I'll select View and choose Salespersons. And here I have my 2 buttons. I can see that Judy Jones button will return 16 orders with a total value of approximately 85,000. I also created another custom bar called Web Store. Let's take a look at that one. As you can see, This button filters on orders with an origin ID of Amazon. This is the web store template name. I also created a button for my web store eBay so I can filter on eBay orders. Let's quickly create a new bar. To do that, I'll click Add at the bottom and I'll choose Bar. I need to enter a description for the new bar. Let's call this High Dollar Orders. It automatically starts us off with a button. We can add to the button or change the existing options here. I'm going to add to it, so I'll click the plus sign next to the and where order number is added, that's not the field I want to use in this case, so I'm going to click on that to choose from a list of sales order fields. In this case, I want to use, let's say I want to use branch ID, and I'm going to make this equal to my D branch, which is my Dallas branch. And since this is my high dollar orders bar, and this is also going to be my high dollar over 5K button, I'm going to add a field that is going to filter in on the subtotal amount. So subtotal is, instead of is, I want this to include orders greater than or equal to 5,000. You can see that returns 5 orders. Now on my button, I'd like to see the total ordered value, so I'm going to change the amount to be ordered. Okay, let's close config. We'll go to my high dollar orders button, and here I can see that I have 5 orders returned totaling approximately 149,000, and these are the 5 orders. As you can see, you could create varying increments representing different high value orders. There's numerous possibilities on how you can configure these buttons. Now that we have a few configured, let's take a look at how we can further filter if necessary. I'm going to go back to the workflow status bar. On any of the views, including the default views, I can apply quick filters. These filters are meant as a way to quickly filter down the orders that were returned by the buttons. On the Ready to Pick tab, I want to see all orders for my customer Abercrombie that are ready to pick. So I'm already on the Ready to Pick button, so I'm going to click Filter. And anything I add here will be added to the existing buttons. So I'm going to choose Add Customer ID is, and I can type in or look up my customer. In this case, I'm going to look up Abercrombie and select Abercrombie and apply. When I click OK, it's filtered down this view to display only the Abercrombie orders. The filter is in effect for all the views and buttons until you remove it. Keep in mind these filters are on top of what the button is currently filtering. For example, if I go to shipped, it's showing the shipped orders for Abercrombie. If I want to remove these filters, I can go back into the filter window and click the X to remove that. Or if I close the sales order manager, it'll remove any existing filters. So again, these are quick filters, they're not saved. So in this case, I will close the sales order manager. When I open it up again, my Ready to Pick button is now including all orders, not just Abercrombie's orders. If you continually are using quick filters, you might consider setting up new buttons to save you some time. So now that we're able to see the orders we want based on bars, buttons, and these additional filters, we can manage the orders. In order to perform actions on orders, we need to select orders. You can select all the orders by clicking the checkbox in the header, or you can individually check them off. So for example, this header checkbox here will select all the orders, or I may manually go through and select the specific orders I want. You can also use Shift or Control buttons and click on rows to highlight them. Then from the Order Manager selection menu, you can choose to select those rows. This makes it easier to select a section of orders. For example, I want to print pick tickets for the orders that have a workflow status of ready to pick. However, at this point, I only want to print pick tickets for orders that are scheduled in full. I have a shipment coming in today and I might be able to fulfill some of these other orders, so for now I'm just going to print pick tickets for scheduled in full, ready to pick orders. So to do that, I'm going to click on the ready to pick button. Then I'm going to sort by the columns displayed here. So again, I want to print only for scheduled in full, so I'm going to sort by this column here, which represents the back order status, if you will, of the order. Green indicates that everything on that order is scheduled in full. Yellow means there are some items that are on back order, or some quantity on back order. Red indicates everything on the order is on back order. So in this case, instead of checking each one of these individually, instead what I'll do is I'll click on the first row to highlight it. I'll hold shift and click on the last green order, and that'll highlight them all. And then I can use the selection menu here to check the selected. So as you can see, depending on your number of orders you want to select, this might be a more efficient way than going through and clicking each one in the event that you're not intending to select all the orders. Okay, if I go to the action menu, you can see what my options are. The first option on there is schedule. Our users who have used the business alerts sales order management tab are familiar with this button. This would check for any available inventory to allocate to these orders. In this case, these are scheduled in full, so there's nothing I need to allocate to them. A new button that we have implemented is the unschedule button below that. And as I mentioned earlier, the idea behind this is you may want to unallocate inventory from one order so that it could be allocated to another order. An example of that would be orders that were taken today that won't ship for a couple months, but you get in another order today that needs to go out tomorrow. So in that case, you may choose to take from the future order, future ship date order, and allocate it to the order that needs to go out tomorrow. Print sales orders, pick tickets, and pack lists. Those allow you to print those forms in batch for the selected orders. Alternatively, you could email a sales order, pick tickets, and pack lists. In this case, I want to print pick tickets. So I'm going to go to print sales pick tickets, and I will print a standard pick ticket. I do have all my other variations of the pick ticket forms. So when I click this, it's going to ask me if I want to print 7 pick tickets, and yes, I do. And here's my pick tickets. As you can see, there's 7 pages at the top, 7 orders included. So I can print these out in batch. I'm going to close this now. Those orders automatically get moved to pick in progress when you print a pick ticket. So they are no longer in the ready to pick button. If I click on pick in progress, you will see that they do remain selected. So if I need to continue further actions against that subset of orders, I can. It's important that when we print the pick ticket that the workflow status goes into pick in progress. And the reason for that is because if I print out a pick ticket and I give it to someone in the warehouse to start picking, and a salesperson or customer service representative talks to a customer and the customer indicates they want to make a change to the order, this would indicate to the salesperson or customer service representative that this order is currently being picked, and rather than editing the order, which might not be seen by the warehouse, they need to communicate to the warehouse that there is a change to the order, and if the warehouse has not packaged it and shipped it, that change could be made. So as I mentioned, we could continue to print other forms based on these orders. So now that I printed pick tickets, I may choose to also go ahead and print a pack list for these, so that way they can have a pack list in the package that gets shipped out. If I no longer need these, I can just uncheck them here. So one other new enhancement is the ability to mass email from Acctivate now, including invoices. I'd like to invoice the shipped orders and send an email telling the customer the order has been shipped. To do that, I can go to the shipped button and select all the orders that were shipped. So here I have 6 orders that have been shipped out. I will select all of these and I'll go to Action and Prepare Invoices. In the top here, the email checkbox is checked. There is some additional configuration beyond that that needs to occur. In the configuration manager, under the forms section in the order section, you need to have the email invoices box checked. And you also need to have a template set up. Since you're mass emailing, each email will use the same template. So I will prepare invoices. Now here is my email window, and I'm going to choose one of my templates. So I have a template of shipped orders, and when I select that, it's going to fill in. I have my template configured to pull order information. So in this case, it pulls the customer name and the sales order number into the body of the email, as well as the subject line. So here you can see A14900T shipped is the subject, and the email starts off with the contact name on the sales order, Victoria Palmer, and has the message, your order A1490T has shipped. Thank you for your business and hope to serve you again in the future. I can click to the right here to see the other emails that are generated. Clicking send will send the emails for all of these customers. Only sales orders that have an email address on it will be included. In this case, all 6 of my orders had email addresses. However, if one of them was missing an email address, then only 5 emails would be generated. But all 6 would be invoiced. A new workflow status is also introduced in Acctivate 10.2. It's the partial invoiced workflow status. There's also a button called partial invoiced. So when I click on partially invoiced, I see orders that have been invoiced but are not completed, meaning there are back-ordered items or items that were unable to be invoiced. In this case, we've invoiced these, but now we want to check for new inventory availability to allocate to these. So I will go to Action and Schedule. And these 3 are checked on the partially invoiced button, so Acctivate is going to check for any available inventory to allocate to these 3 orders, since that's what I have in front of me. And since they've been rescheduled, they're now getting moved back into the Ready to Pick button, the Ready to Pick workflow status, which is under the Ready to Pick button. Since I've rescheduled these now, I can start the process again by going to the Action menu, printing new pick tickets where available, and moving on. Some of the other actions that are available is prepare shipments. For users that use Packaging Manager, you can prepare shipments from this window now so that they can be packaged in Packaging Manager. Another new feature is the change workflow status. This was something that did not exist before, but has come up many times. The change workflow status allows me to select orders and change from one workflow status to the next. So in this case, I see that I have my customer Ajax calls, and they want to put any orders they have open on hold. So in this case, I can quickly filter down using my filters, and I can add in my customer ID is Ajax. And I'm going to select this order. I'm going to change the workflow status to be, I'm going to put this on pick on hold because they said that they may make changes to the order. They don't want to proceed with this order yet. They'll get back to me. So I'm going to move it into the pick and hold. So now it's out of the ready to pick. When I go to pick on hold, I see the order here. And again, I can remove my quick filters. When viewing a button, you have some options on how you sort here. So I can click on a column heading to arrange it in either direction. If I hold Shift, I can combine sorting to sort based on multiple columns. So for example, I want to look at the oldest date, and then within that I want to order it alphabetically. So for my 7/23 orders, I'll see Bayshore, Bob's Stores, and then Bristol. You can also right click into this grid, export to Excel. That's something that you were able to do before, but once you've sorted your orders in a particular fashion, you may choose to export it out. Clicking on a column heading allows me to select the sorting as well, or clear any existing sorting. I also have the option to fit the columns so that text in the columns is visible. So I can do best fit on this particular column, which will adjust the column width accordingly, or I can do best fit for all columns. And you can see there's a slight shift there, but the idea is it's going to make the information easier to view. Now, also with this particular bar, the workflow status bar, you can see we have several buttons along the top. In fact, they run slightly off the screen a little bit. I have an arrow visible here that indicates that I can move further to the right, and now I can move further to the left. Depending on the number of buttons you add, you may find yourself needing to move left and right. So another way to do that would be to click on anywhere in the bar, and you can slide left and right to quickly move from one side to the other. So let's go back to the configuration. If we look at our web orders, in particular Amazon, you can see I only have one order that meets the criteria. You can always add additional fields to a button that's existing to make it meet your criteria. In this case, you may choose to view based on a requested ship date. So I can scroll down to requested ship date, and in the operator list you'll see the options. Earlier we looked at a few of these briefly, but as you can see we have is, which is an equal to, is not, which is not equal to. Then you have after, and then is on or before, is on or before. These are going to apply to my date, so I'm going to say is on or before and 12/31 2016, so the end of the year. So adding the requested ship date filter, for example, is going to allow me to have better control over which orders I see and need to ship today. You can add these filters to any of these buttons and change them at any point. So let's take a look at some of the other operators here. So we have is between, which would be a range, is not between. Is null and not null. Null meaning there's no value at all. So if there's no phone number provided, that might be a null field. Is any of, this is going to be if you want to include multiple criteria. So order status is any of scheduled, back ordered. And maybe I do want to include another option such as, let's say, booked. We also have some date sensitive fields. So is beyond this year, is later this year, this month, next week. So for the requested ship date, modifying this button to use 12/31/16 may only make sense for a short period of time. Realistically, I might want that to be a little bit more of a moving date, so I might choose the option of is later this week or is tomorrow, and that way the button doesn't have to be constantly edited with a new date. It's going to reflect any orders coming up. So as you can see, there's really a numerous number of possibilities here on how you get your orders presented to you. You can filter, you could create buttons based on the trading partner if you need to see orders by trading partner, as I created here, web stores, salespersons, high dollar value orders, etc. So it's really limited to a certain extent by your imagination and how you need to manage these orders. If at any point I need to remove a button, I can delete it. So in this case, maybe I'm no longer using eBay. The button just clutters up my bar, so I'm just going to remove that button. So when I click on my web orders, now I just have my Amazon button. One other thing I'd like to point out is in regards to the workflow status automation. So if I go to the configuration manager, this is relevant based on the actions that can be performed in the sales order manager. When I go to the sales order options section, in Acctivate 10.2, there's a new workflow status section. So when I rescheduled orders earlier, it moved them back into the ready to pick bar. Ready to pick button. That gets it back into the button so that I can start picking again once I've allocated new inventory to it. You can configure which workflow status it should go back into once you reschedule an order. In this case, I chose the default Acctivate workflow status of ready to pick. However, if you create your own workflow statuses in Acctivate, you could choose a different one here. Once an order has been fully shipped and invoiced, the workflow status will go to, in this case, shipped. Again, you can choose a different option. Before, when you invoice an order in full, the workflow status would get cleared out, but now it can default to one of these. Partially invoiced, it's going to go into the workflow status partially invoiced, which is again a new default workflow status, but you can customize the naming convention of this workflow status. And as I mentioned earlier, when you print the pick ticket, it will go into pick in progress, which I strongly encourage. Again, once you print it, you don't want anyone to make changes to that order without confirming that the order hasn't been actually completely picked and shipped, or they may have picked an item that is no longer on the order. So I would just be cognizant of the pick in progress workflow status and make arrangements to communicate any changes to the people doing the picking and shipping. So as you can see, combining workflow statuses with the sales order manager and your personalized filters allows you great control over how you view the information and perform actions on the information. So I wouldn't think of it as one way or the other, meaning using this just to process orders. You could use it just as a quick way to query orders, and that's what I was illustrating with the high dollar orders. So in my case, Floyd Harris, he wants to see anything over a certain value, so that way he can confirm everything is in order, credit limits are great, whatever it may be. So it's useful in terms of querying orders and then also processing orders, moving them through and having better control over different types of orders. These days, you may have multiple channels in which your orders come in, web store, EDI, phone calls, whatever it may be. So let's take a look and see if there's any questions here. One question is, are these settings configured per user or globally? The views are global for all users, but any of those quick filters are done at the user level. So any button and bar that's created is available to any person. So keep that in mind when creating these. You may name them in a certain way. It could be Floyd's bar, Mary's bar, whatever it may be, so that you don't have to stumble through somebody else's. And with the ability to copy buttons, you may choose to just copy someone else's existing button that meets your criteria as well and put it into your bar. Another question here is this an add-on module or is this part of Acctivate 10.2? This is included in the base system. There's no additional module that needs to be purchased. You'll have all the functionality that was on display here. One other question is this solely informational, meaning the information you see on the screen, or will the orders be canceled if it were to go beyond a requested ship date? So in the scenario where I set a requested ship date, that just allows me a way to filter on that set of orders so that I can make sure I get those picked first as opposed to orders that have a later requested ship date. So it's only informational. What you do with that information is up to you, whether you print the pick tickets on time or if you even go past that requested ship date, that's up to you. When doing mass emails, can you use the specific templates on specific emails or only one template on all emails being sent in the mass send? So yeah, when you are emailing, any orders that are included in that batch email will use the same template. So if your Amazon orders need to be sent with one template, your eBay orders need to be sent with a different template, then either using the quick filters to separate those two, or like I have, creating two different buttons will allow you to select them separately. So you would do two batch emails, each with their own template. One question here is this the same functionality as business alerts? So some of our customers might be familiar with business alerts, which is the icon up here, and there was a sales order management tab. However, this is much more limited than the sales order manager. Here I can only filter by workflow status and salesperson, and I can only print forms. That's it. There's nothing else to it. I can schedule orders. There's no additional filtering customization like the order manager has. I don't have the ability to perform all these different actions, including the batch emailing and updating the workflow status, doing quick filters. So the sales order manager is a major improvement. At this point, it's not intended to replace it. You can still use the business alerts if you're comfortable with that. However, everything you can do in business alerts, you can do in the sales order manager. So I would strongly encourage you to look at the order manager first if you have any questions or anything, but I think you'll be able to do everything and more from here. This is a good question. Are there permission settings applied to order manager? There is an order management setting that's introduced also with the sales order manager, and it includes the not allowed, view only, and maintain options. Again, not allowed, the user would not have access to the order manager at all. View only is they could view the bars and buttons and the orders that are returned, but they wouldn't be able to edit anything. And then maintain is they'll have full access to it. Can you email order acknowledgments and batch forms? Yeah, so you can use the email sales order function. So under action here, we have the email sales orders. And again, you have access to all your order forms. So if you have a particular acknowledgement form that you want to send, you can just select it from here. One question here I want to address, it says, where's the best place to specify the order channel on an order, where the order came from? Without getting too much into it, there are a couple different ways to do it, but orders that come through EDI and web store, the source of the order, the origin, is actually recorded in the database. So, and that's going to, you'll be able to choose, in my case, Amazon and eBay was the template name. So any orders that import in will automatically, they're flagged in the database as being an Amazon order or an eBay order. So I can filter on those. Now, that being said, if you are currently using something such as a marketing code on a sales order as a way to indicate the source of the order, that is something that could be filtered on as well. If you print a pick ticket directly from an order without using the order manager, will it automatically update the workflow status? Yes. And that was actually introduced in a previous version before 10.2. But yes, when you open up an individual sales order, print the pick ticket, the workflow status will change. One other action that I did not cover here was the cancel. That's a new feature as well. So the action of cancel allows you to cancel orders, again, either individually or in batch. So let's go to workflow statuses. And let's say that I had some orders that were ready to pick, and I realized that I made a mistake on these on the order entry, or the customer called. Again, maybe a customer calls and says cancel all my orders. In that case, select the orders I want to cancel, and I will go to action and choose cancel, and cancel 3 orders yes. And those orders are now canceled. So again, that can be useful in the event that you're importing in orders and maybe there was something incorrectly mapped on the order import, or you need to filter on a particular customer's orders and cancel them all, any outstanding orders or anything that doesn't ship by a certain date. Actually, there's a couple questions here I'll address quickly. Can this be accessed in the demo version before Acctivate is fully integrated? When you update to 10.2, this feature becomes available across your demo, model, live, if you have multiple live companies. So it's specific to the version of Acctivate, not the company file. So there's not a way to view it in only one company and not the other. So as always, if you have any questions, please visit our help site. We've been updating the help site to include articles and information on the Sales Order Manager. If you do not find something you're looking for there, please feel free to contact our support team. Let us know any questions or comments you have, and we will address them. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation.